Welcome to our Meet the Experts TV production designers panel. I'm here with Erin Magill from Dead Ringers, Francesca di Mottola from The Great, Maya Sigel from Hello Tomorrow, Ramsey Avery from The Lord of the Rings of Power, Paul Cripps from Ted Lasso, and Shayne Fox from What We Do in the Shadows. Now, the work you do, the shows I just named are so incredibly different from each other, but I imagine one uniting factor is the importance of having a really good collaborative environment with your teams. How do you approach your leadership role? Start with Shayne.
It's a good question. I think we're all nothing without a great team. You know, you need to have people who are inspired and talented, top of their field, which we're lucky enough to have here. Every set dresser, every wireman, everybody cares. And that I hope that shows on camera. I mean, there's a lot of the people here also my really good friends, you know, for a long time. And that love, I think, kind of shows up on camera. At least I hope it does. So yeah, I mean, everybody has their role and everybody has their function, and we're pretty open here, and you know, we listen to each other and work together. And I don't know, it's what I love most about this job is the collaborative nature of it. You know, I've done other projects and other avenues of life that are more solo and more sort of, you know, diving deep, and just listening to my own brain all the time gets, you know, tiring. I want to hear what other people think, and I want to see their faces when we put things forward. And, you know, there's nothing more satisfying than spending so much time and energy and effort working on something as a collective, and then standing back one day and it's lit and it's on camera and you're looking on the monitor. Like, that's, I think, what we all live for, those moments where like, hey guys, look what we just did. It's pretty cool. So collaboration is key. It's everything. We're nothing without it.
Erin?
Yes, I absolutely concur with everything Shayne said. I know for me specifically with Dead Ringers, what was really amazing is one, just I think you're able, the team that, you know, we happened to be doing this during a very busy time. It was kind of coming out of the pandemic. And so there was, you know, a lot of work being done, and to kind of get the right team together. I was very fortunate that I think the scripts I had to kind of entice were just so brilliantly written. But then once I got that team together, you know, I think it's just invaluable when you're all very much on that same page about the world you're trying to create from that starting point of the story, the same way that I'm collaborating with the showrunner, the DPs, and the director. You know, I was able to go back to my team, my decorator, my art directors, my assistant art directors, and really, I think, empower them to, you know, take some of their own creative license, because we, I think as Ramsey mentioned earlier, you know, there's, no matter the budget, there's really never enough money and time. And so I think, you know, it's really important to have a group of people that you can trust and you're on the same page, so that then, you know, I might have a grand vision, and then I'm able to look to my team to, you know, okay, how are we going to scale this down, because we don't have that much time, or we have to turn it into this 2 days later. And yeah, it's crucial to have that.
Paul?
Yeah, I would say collaboration, but also making a lovely environment to work in. I think a lot of time over the years, it's been difficult to retain people who you like, or retain a team that you love working with. And I think on Ted Lasso, we kind of led from Jason, where he's got such an attitude of everybody being so lovely to each other. And it sounds awful. It sounds so awful. But there is that environment that if you make it a really nice environment to work in, people want to come and work there. And I think that's so important in our business, because it can be so challenging. It's long hours, it's hard work. And I think if you can create an environment where people are having a good time and they seem to be producing something that's important to people, then you are going to get people who want to come and work for you. And I think that's so important. I've kind of changed in the years since I've been working, and I think Ted Lasso has been a bit of an epiphany, where you create something that's good because you create an environment that's good. And I think that's important. I've worked in a lot of environments of making shows where the environment has not been good and people have left or they've become ill. And I think it's important to change that. So I think that's a really important thing that I've learned from doing this series.
Ramsey?
I think if any of us thought in the morning how many decisions we'd have to make during the day or throughout the process, we just simply would not get out of bed. And the idea that we can actually, we can rely on people that we've grown to trust and that we brought in to help us out, to help us get through that process. There's simply, my brain is this big and the project is this big, and there's just no way that I can do all of that. So part of the idea is casting the people that you want to cast, and sometimes you can't. So finding the right way to bring out whatever you can in those people to bring them into the team, because it is so much about the days are hard and they go on forever. And there's another day after that day and then another day. And the whole idea that we just have to find an environment, like Paul was saying, to say that it's in a pleasant place to work and that everybody is valued. I mean, I was stunned that the photographers on our project actually took the time sometimes to go into these extreme close-ups where the embroiderer's work would shine, you know, and it was just so great to be able to go to that artist the next day and go, do you realize what we saw yesterday? That time you've spent weeks embroidering that pillowcase, and it was there and it looked great. And being able to bring everybody along on that ride with us is just, it's really the only reason. I mean, it's great to work in this wonderful environment and get to do the things and meet the people and go the places we do, but it's so wonderful to work with the artists that we get to work with. I want to work with these people as much as I can, wherever I can, and find those equally enthusiastic and talented folk. It's just, it's the reason to do this.
Francesca?
I mean, I agree with everything that has been said. It's part of it's such an enriching process to sort of exchange ideas and open up, like to start with an idea that feels this small, and then it grows, and then sometimes it sort of completely develops into something totally different. So I think going back on a third season of a world that was created sometimes by a different team, but having people that have come back with me and sort of welcoming new team members and sort of trying to bring them on board and hear out what they have to say to add to the world that we have created is so exciting. And I feel I've been really lucky in these last few years to sort of collaborate with amazing artists. And I can't be more thankful really to the artistry that has been brought, and with such excitement. And I think really it is up to us to create the environment and to sort of make sure that a positive energy filters throughout, like to construction. And it's such big departments that make these worlds come to life. So we just, I think part of our jobs really, other than designing, is checking in that people are happy and they are working to the best, their best potential. So.
And Maya?
So I really, first of all, what everyone has said is excellent. And I think one of the most important design decisions you make is really who you're bringing on your crew. And I was very, very fortunate on Hello Tomorrow with every person who was heading up the different departments within the art department. And, I feel like my role is always to guide the process, to give really clear communication and an overall design vision and sort of these marching orders, and then to really let people be creative and play and check in. And it's one of my favorite things is to have everybody off doing different things and then to walk back into the office after a location scout all day and to have, you know, a line of everybody wanting to show me stuff and show me what they came up with, and really kind of curating that to work within the framework of the vision of the show. So yeah, I love that. And, you know, the truth is really that, especially with this show at the very beginning, there was so much that had to happen in order for us to be able to shoot on the first day. And so much of it was front loaded that it really was like we were like a creative design lab, and there were people working on gadgets and people working on different sets and people looking towards future episodes. And everyone really just gave it their best and people were so excited. So
I have to say, I'm the exact opposite. I'm really rubbish at communication. So people have to go off and do their own thing anyway, because I'm not very good at telling them what to do, but I'm quite good at making decisions. So when they come back with something, I can say yes or no, but I'm not the best at communication. So, you know, well done to you, because I find that quite difficult.
And one more question for everybody is, you know, being, you know, that you're creating these spaces that these characters live in, you know, has any of your work influenced your own personal design aesthetic? Start with Francesca.
Not at all. I don't know. I feel like I don't take enough care in terms of like what is my personal spaces enough. And I throw all of my sort of energy into work, and that I often surprise myself in that way, in which I should spend more time sort of curating my personal spaces, whilst I try to sort of keep the spaces I inhabit quite minimal. And yeah, I've got everything I need in a sort of harmonious way, but I think especially like comparing my world to the world of the great, where it's like ornate and like there's never an end. Yeah, I used to be a bit of a collector and a hoarder. I also live very close to Portobello Market, so that was a little bit of a problem for me. And so I had to sort of overcome that problem. It was a bit of a problem, and I sort of shoved it into work, and now my spaces are clean.
Maya?
well, I think it's a tricky question with this one, because I think it's already sort of an era that I love and gravitate towards. I think there's always a bit of your sensibility that goes into the project, whatever it happens to be. And maybe a little bit on the reverse too. I think for me, when I'm really immersed in something, regardless what the world is, you know, you find the beauty, and you find a way to make something cinematic and beautiful. And so sometimes, you know, afterwards I'll come home and I'll, you know, be influenced by it. But for the most part, not so much. It's usually the other way around.
Ramsey?
I spent 2 years trying to figure out how to light everything with the sun or the moon or with flame. And it is so...
In your house or on a show?
On a show. And it was so amazing to finally take all of that and go, oh, I love electric light. You know, I always thought I was somebody who did not like I wanted a candle flame. And like after 2 years of I want to figure out how to make practical light look lovely in my house and environments in my office, and offices and studios. It's almost impossible. But the idea of trying to go back now and think about how light really affects every environment we move ourselves through and our departments through, and trying to figure out the joy of electric light. That's something that was a kind of a revelation to me about the value of electricity.
Paul?
Oh, my house is a complete mess. It's awful. It's full of stuff I've stolen from shows which don't match, and they're all very nice pieces in their right, but they don't go with anything. So it's terrible. I was hoping to take off some time soon to actually, I'm supposed to kind of redo my house because my wife is so fed up with me never being around that if I don't do the house, I think she'll have gone. So I need to do something with it, but I find it very difficult to do my own space. I don't know, maybe I need to write myself into the script.
Exactly. You need to create a character for yourself.
Yeah, I don't have one. So that, yeah, I mean, this is not my house, by the way. This is a hotel room in Croatia. But yeah, I find it really difficult. And also by the time I get home, I don't want to do it. So it's a bit of a mess and eclectic, and every piece is lovely, but doesn't go with anything else. So it's kind of eye gouging, I think was how I would describe it.
Erin?
Yes, I have share sentiments with many things people have said. I would say I'm definitely a bit of a collector that has recognized her problem and has been working on, I'd say, constant, probably after every time a project is done, to kind of do a bit of a cleanse. But I think the collecting in a way relates to my design, in that I do, I love the details of a story of something, and the things that I hold on to tend to, have a meaning, or from a trip or something from, a family relative or something like that. But I will say, especially when it came to Dead Ringers, that was actually something that I think for me was kind of really fun about the twins' apartment, because they were so sterile, and there wasn't going to be something I really spoke about with Alice, this layer of personal history and texture that would very much be something like, if you walked into my house, it would be the complete opposite of them, which, in a way, it was very, I think, therapeutic and cathartic for me to kind of have that experiment of, really going for the minimalism and just focusing on the shapes and the proportions and the textures and the paint and wallpapers that we were using. And, then I've tried to use that back a little with myself, but I'm not there yet. And I definitely feel on the what Paul said in terms of, I've acquired many things through shows throughout the years that I try to make sense, but sometimes now I just try to get rid of them when I think it's time to maybe put that show in the past and really let all the baggage go from the show. That's
quite difficult, though.
Yeah.
And Shayne?
Well, I was just going to say, before I answer the question, I was just going to say that, it'd be so fun to do like a deep dive into production designers' homes and like what kind of museums they actually are, of where they've been, like that chair was from that show that I hated, but I love the chair, it's just kind of funny. But I think for me, I think everything kind of is intertwined. I was a decorator for a long time, and I like stuff. I like curtains. I like carpets. I love furniture. I just so happen to really love Victorian stuff and antiques, and these are the things that I'm personally drawn to. So it's kind of like a perfect fit for me to be on this show, because we do lean into that a lot. But I curate it. Like, I don't want my house to look like the mansion or anything ridiculous like that. My curtains are long. They pool in my house, much to my husband's chagrin. He fights me on it all the time because it's hard to clean. But I'm like, you can't have curtains that skim the floor. Like, that's just who I am. So I love the old things. I love antiques, and I love things that are well made, and those are the things I'm always drawn towards. So they kind of overlap a little bit for this particular show. I don't know if I would have as much fun doing like a medical drama or anything, because I really like ornate stuff, but yeah, I think that answers the question.
I just would like to say, though, I am in a kind of, it's supposed to be a very nice designed hotel, and they do have lots of lovely stuff, but I've got to show everybody this one thing because it's just been bugging the hell out of me. And that's this picture.
Which is nothing.
Yeah.
It evaporated.
It's like a grey, silvery grey painted canvas with a frame. And there's a nice bit of art next to it, but I don't, it's not even covering something up.
It's a state of mind.
Exactly. I just thought I have to show something because it's been driving me mad for about 3 minutes.
I'll say another thing that I don't know if you all agree with this too, but I feel like I let myself play with colors much more in my work than I do at home. Like at home, I really want sort of a calm palette, and I don't paint my walls anything but white anymore. And then,
you know, curate it. You pull the things that the bits might, mean something bigger to you instead of having a whole room be, a deep jewel tone, right? I get that. My house too.
It's so fun in your work when I'm like, that's where I get to play with the palette more, and add all those layers.
That's one of the things why by getting to go location scouting and seeing how everybody else in the world lives from various economic levels, it's fascinating to see how people use color in their homes and choices that are made. And some of them are like, oh, I would never think of that, but that's pretty cool. Not that I could do it myself, but that black room, like, okay, there's a really interesting idea there. But it's just, that's one of the things I really love about what we do is those opportunities to see so much of what we wouldn't normally have an opportunity to see.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. I find color the hardest thing to do. I think it's really difficult. There's so many elements to think about in terms of, color tone, in terms of people standing out from the set, but also getting the right feeling of the set and the warmth and the cold. And then they also twiddle all the knobs in post and they change it. And that's something I've always struggled with. I think I'm getting better at it, but it's also such a learning curve as the technology changes as well. But it's the one thing I always struggle a little bit with.
Same here. I'm really scared of color, I have to be honest. And I sort of am reticent to go there. And I'm still waiting for that project that will sort of force me to do it. And so, yeah, one day maybe. But I'm just quite obsessed with texture and walls that have depth. So I'm, quite sort of interested in layering and darkness somehow. But color itself, I find scary.
Color's so dependent on the lighting too, right? Like you could have something in mind and then the DP has something else in mind, or on the day it just comes together differently. You're like, oh my God, I thought that was going to be so bright and I can't make anything out. It's all about the lighting.
I feel like half of my prep is like, here's the boards, and the DP and I are looking at like 2 of the same shades. It's like one shade. I'm like, which one do you like? But they're basically 2 of the same thing. I
did a camera test once with a wallpaper pattern that was a really, really deep, rich green. And I was super happy with the green. And the DP just sat behind the camera and said, I think it should be blue, and turned the knob. And there it was blue. Like, oh.
Yeah.
That's I don't know about when you find somebody. It's like this show. I had done a previous show with this DP and the director of the first 4 episodes. So we trust each other, and it's like golden to have that kind of relationship. You want to keep those people forever because that all of the planning that you've done is actually going to end up on screen the way that you'd intended.
I was going to say, actually the opposite of that, which I'm sure you have all encountered. I was working with a first-time showrunner and a director of our first block who had never worked in television and only done a few films. And so there was a lot of, obviously with our limited amount of time in the TV world, but there was a lot of, I think, hand holding to kind of when I wanted to make those bolder color choices in wallpaper that I'm sure you've all encountered, of kind of like how to convince them that it's going to look really great. And, whether it's model or putting it up or, you know, working in photoshopping images of locations, and just thankfully there was only one thing we had to redo, and one sad little headboard we made that ended up getting removed. But I always find that the most challenging. And so, yes, when you've worked with someone that trusts you and knows, that is a dream.
Yeah, and it's like, you know,
Yeah.
it's a back and forth too.
Yeah.
I feel like the more, sometimes the less ego I have and the more that I involve everybody, the better it is ultimately. And the more it's just an exchange of ideas and you come to kind of something in the middle.
Yeah.
But isn't it amazing when you do have their trust and, you know, they let you do your thing and then everybody loves it? Like, that's a great feeling. And the more experienced showrunners are the ones who are probably going to give you that trust, right? Because they know she's the professional, she's got this. I don't need to, you know, interject my own aesthetic viewpoint. You know, I appreciate that.
I was also going to say that because Ted Lasso was an Apple production, we had quite a good budget. I tried to go green on all the building materials and the paint, and I used only eco-friendly paint, which I hadn't done before. And I have to say the color choices that we made on it, they actually just felt a lot better. I don't know if it was a kind of moral thing and it was just making me feel better, but if people haven't tried that and tried eco-based paints that don't include acrylics and stuff, it's really worth looking at because they're really interesting, and there's a certain tonal quality to them which is actually different and might be worth looking at. You might find it interesting, and it's a good choice to make. I was very lucky to do it, but I'm now trying to carry it on even though I'm working on a lower budget show, because I just think they're nicer tones as well and colors.
Interesting.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much for talking with me today about everything. It's been such a wonderful, fascinating conversation with all of you. And thank you all for joining me, and have a great day.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you all. Bye.
Yeah.
Nice to meet everybody.
you all.
Bye.